little more. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love you.
So the next slide talks about, it's a reconciliation to numbers that you were presented in the past. So on March 31st, there was a set of numbers that assumed 100% of the telecommunication expense was allocated to CLIC. And again, that the reason that was done in that way at that time was because we were focused on the WAVE proposal, and under the WAVE proposal, 100% of the telecommunication expense would go away. But that's the basis on which those numbers were prepared. And then on the right column, we have the allocation based on the new allocation, so 94% to CLIC rather than 100% shown in the prior column. And the essential difference between these two columns is $2 million. And if you look at total O&M and taxes, it's $33.5 million is the total O&M expense that I described in the prior two slides. And because we're allocating that 94% to CLIC rather than 100% to CLIC, you can see that it's $2 million less. That's the essential difference between the two. So moving on, sure.
Any questions about that last slide? I figured you would, so I want to just let's just pause for a second and look at this slide, think about it, and ask our questions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I really appreciate the information that from a rate standpoint, we're still staying with the 75-25, but from out planning going forward, looking at the 94-6.
And actually, we're proposing, we're planning to implement the 94-6 for everything. So it would be, that's what would be reflected in our financials. That's what would be reflected in rates going forward, because basically 94% of the cost of the telecommunication expense that we incur is caused by CLIC as opposed to the electric side.
I understand that, but so you don't have the numbers running that if you kept it at 75%. I'm trying to come at this from a business standpoint, and when I look at a private business, you know, you make the deal, so to speak. That here's the deal, and I know Councilmember Campbell and I have been trying to come up with an analogy, and the closest I could come to was Tacoma Power buying a really nice car and going to drive it to New York City, and says this is the car we need to get to New York City, and then CLIC saying, hey, you know what, we can ride along, but we'll split the costs, and this is how it'll go, and it's great. And so off they head, and then they get to Minneapolis, and Tacoma Power says, you know what, we're done. You can take it on to New York, but now you got to come up with more money to cover it because you're the only one riding in the car. And you kind of go, yeah, but I thought we were going to New York together, kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see where the 75-25 would be, because that's kind of how it was set up initially, and just to see where how those numbers lay out, because that's how, as it was back before, that's how it was kind of shown as being a reasonable way to go. And I understand technology changes and everything, so that would be a request. Thank you.
Councilmember Bull, I like analogies as much as anybody, and I think your analogy is a good one about the car going to New York. And so if I could just follow up on that analogy, that is all true, and we got to Chicago together.
Yeah, that's probably closer, Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago, Minneapolis.
But the difference is that we're not going to New York anymore. You know, we were going towards wired meters, we thought. We got as far as Chicago, and then we decided we're not going to wired meters anymore. And that's the reason for the fork in the road. If we were both still interested in going to New York, great. But we're not.
How long is this analogy conversation going to go on?
Well, I just to tie in the previous discussion we had this morning, we realize that with any business, you can't immediately change your accounting numbers, because no business could take that just to say overnight to say, okay, you're going to go from 75% to 94%.
Right.
Normally, you build into it and say, okay, realize things have changed, but the reality is you've got to build your way into this.
Yeah, there could be a transition, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's why I think having the 75-25 would be interesting, is just to see it as a comparison.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll provide
Thank
that.
you.